Is your talent strategy? I don't care if you have a second job, as long as you get the work done that you're supposed to do for us.
Right. Hey, Carol, how's it going today?
Hey, Mr. Rob, how's it going with you?
Living the dream. We're back
Living the
at it here.
dream.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Here in lovely Florida.
yeah,
Sun's
yeah. We had
out.
a little
Yep.
snowstorm here on the weekend in Colorado,
Snow.
and then of course it melted up, and now it's beautiful and sunny again. So,
Oh,
as it
yeah.
as it often
Well,
gets here in the spring, we have weird weather. It's either always windy or snowing or something ridiculous like that.
I love Colorado. You live in a great
Yeah,
place. So look, I got to bring this up. This is I was reading the Business Insider,
yeah.
and I'll give you the tagline. 6 people were interviewed who made up to half a million a year, secretly working multiple remote jobs. Share why they don't feel guilty and why there's nothing wrong with what they call overemployment. I have my opinions on this, but Carol, you got a lot of years in this business. I'm just curious to see what you think. Start it off and let's have some fun with this one.
Yeah. So I have a lot of feelings, and we'll definitely go back and forth on this.
Yeah.
Partly I feel like, well, and companies are often not, I've said this all the time, right? We talk about the loyalty thing, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Companies are only loyal to you insofar as it suits their needs and interests. Consequently, you should be loyal to them only insofar as it suits your needs and interest. So I think I really feel like that's a lot of what's driving this, Rob, is people are thinking, well, if I get laid off of one, at least I've got another one or two or three jobs, right?
Well, yeah. Yeah.
So there is something to be said about that, who is really, what was the impetus behind this?
Yeah.
Is it companies just laying off people? So they're thinking, well, I'm going to cover my butt.
So my opinion is that a lot of this is the fact that there is so much uncertainty
Yeah.
in the world, in business. So I was looking at this and I was thinking, why would somebody do this? It's because they don't have certainty muscle working because of what's been going on. It's the layoffs,
Hmm.
it's the economy, it's the social economic, everything that's going on in the world
Yeah.
is is feeding people to be fight or flight. And it's that's what's happening. And then I study this and it's all about that. The hormones that are racing through everybody's bodies right now. It's serotonin. It's all the stuff that's not good for you, and cortisol and it's all fight or flight.
Yeah.
And this is a survival mode. This is survival mode. And I did some other research on Reddit and other areas where, hey, I have 3 jobs. I got laid off of 2. I still have the one.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
You talked about that. That really happened to somebody. Um, and I think when you're in fight or flight, there's no rules. And that's where we are. We have no rules.
And, I coined a term not long ago called layoff anxiety. And I really think that that's what is happening here. People are anxious, right? I know you talk a lot about mental health, but that anxiety is directly somebody's mental health, right? So that's the first thing. I think, reading through this article, some guy had, what was it? Gen Xer, network engineer, earned 344K in 2022,
Yep.
secretly
Yep.
working 3 remote jobs. He said the extra income allowed him to pay off the remaining mortgage that he had. Bravo. Um, I think that's awesome. It originally said his wife wasn't a fan of it because she felt like it was taking a job away from somebody else. So the taking the job away from somebody else, I want to touch on a little bit. I'll never forget many, many years ago when I was a youthful recruiter. Um, I had been in the business, 6, 7 years, something like that. I had these 2 guys in Atlanta. So I covered the Southeastern United States, which is, of course, how we met long, long ago. And there were these 2 guys, and they had very similar backgrounds. And of course, when you're putting people in front of clients, you don't ever, it's like doctor patient confidentiality. You don't discuss anything with anybody else. But they would discuss it between themselves. And I would always have one of them call me up and say to me, "Listen, Carol, I heard you put, John into this. John said you'd called him about this job. that he's interested in. And, I don't want to go in and ruin this for him. I thought, okay, Mr. Arrogance. And I said, look, here's the deal. And I think this really kind of talks about it is that if you're the right person for the job, you're going to get the job whether he's there interviewing or not.
Yeah.
If you're not right for the job, you're not going to get it whether he's there interviewing or not. And I think that is really partly what I'm taking away from the wife thinking he's taking a job away from somebody else. Well, no, I mean, if he's the right guy for the job, they're going to give him the job. If he's not, they won't.
Right. Right.
I think the bigger issue, Rob, is that if I take a job, a full-time job with Oracle, doing any job, whatever it might be, as a network engineer, for example, what do you think's going to happen if Oracle finds out that you've got 2 more full-time jobs? I mean, they're probably going to fire me.
Sure, but what a ride until they find out,
Yeah,
if they know, and they may never find out. In fact, there's several people, and I, like I said, I did some other research on several sites, and this is rampant. This is
yeah,
not, people aren't getting caught. They're not getting caught. They're living their dream by working their butts off,
mhm,
and
mhm,
they're able to actually get ahead and pay off their mortgage, or be able to buy a house. I mean, look at the people coming up in the next generation,
right,
my kids' ages, and they don't see a path to
yeah,
success, to own something, to be in, to invest in the stock market or whatever they want to do. They don't see a path for that. We're seeing all kinds of that in social media, right? Everybody's, you, so many people are posting, they're in their car posting, hey, you know what, I had to opt out on eating today because I had to buy, I had to get an oil
yeah,
change or something. You're seeing that all the time, and that's where that cortisol, that's where that fight or flight. This is survival.
yeah,
This is what this is. And I know growing up, like when I first started out, my story. When I first started out in sales, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no
right,
clue, and I wasn't successful at all. I
right.
was making
Well,
mistakes
yeah,
left and
me
right. I
too,
wasn't.
right.
Yeah, I couldn't cover everything. So I actually worked nights at Sears and Roebuck, and I sold washers and dryers and refrigerators, to make ends meet before I started to make it. What's the difference?
I guess the question is because, I can't seem to ever answer a question without asking another question.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the sales in us. Here's the question I have. You were working your full-time job during the day, and then you had this I mean, was it a full-time, part-time job working at Sears?
Full part-time
Part-time
at
job
nights and
working
weekends.
evenings, right. So
Yeah, evenings and weekends. Yep.
so my question is, these people who are triple, quadruple dipping, right,
Yeah,
into,
yeah.
3, 4 jobs, whatever that might be, does the company I mean, I know plenty of founders, Rob, who don't care. Get your job done, we don't care what time you do it.
That's right.
Well, great. Looks like I can have 2 jobs then. But the question is, does the company expect you to be working during business hours? 8 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever those business hours are.
I don't think they do.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think that with the remote, it is clear. First of all right, I'm gonna, all right, maybe I'll get hate mail, maybe I won't. But the reality is, most remote jobs, when COVID hit and everybody went remote.
Mhm.
I don't think people worked as hard as they used to.
Mm.
I really don't, because it was, I'm gonna take my kids to school. I'm gonna have lunch with my wife, which is great. I
Mhm.
loved that part.
Mhm.
I'm gonna take a walk in the park with my dog and do a call because I can make it. Of course, I can't take any notes, and I don't know what the hell they said because I didn't. I was walking the dog in the park, and then I've got to pick up the kids at school at 3, so there's 3 to 4. I'll get a latte on the way home. I'm 4:30 back at my desk. I just, I really struggle with, there's 2 sides of it, because you could also work more because the office is in your house.
Mhm.
You put the kids to bed and then you go in the office and work.
Yep.
But in the scheme of things, how much do you work in that day? I never really could figure that out. I never got the data point, but I'm not sure that it's a full, you know, like we used to. I mean, we went to the office, it was 8 to 6, plus the commute. I get it. It was hard. I mean, I get it.
Yep.
And it's great to be remote.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, there is plenty of time for another job, I think, because your time, you're not first of all, 2-hour commute. That's 4 hours a day. That's half a job right there.
Yeah, right.
Think about it. So, so you could actually not do that other stuff
Mhm.
and go in the office in the morning at
Mhm.
7
Mhm.
and work till 8 at night every day and have 2 jobs and probably be more than efficient.
Yeah, I would agree. So I think, I think that so what's the solution to to let's say an executive who might be listening to this? Well, I don't want my people doing that because there's somebody out there that's thinking that. And there's also people out there going, I don't care as long as they get their work done, right? So I think that this takes you back to their recruiting process, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The work that I do with teams on aligning them, right, in their and all the alignment boils down to is how they communicate, right? So, but once that alignment is in place and we know how to communicate and it's being filtered down throughout the whole organization, then and only then do we build them a talent strategy to support the work that we've done. So if you think about that, what is your talent strategy, right? Is your talent strategy, I don't care if you have a second job, as long as you get the work done that you're supposed to do for us,
Right.
okay? That's a perfectly reasonable strategy if that's what your strategy is. Okay. And then there also may be the strategy of, no, no, I don't want you because what happens if somebody reaches out to you during the day when you're supposed to be doing work for me? Or how long are you going to be distracted by that?
Right.
Right. So I think what's important is that as you're bringing people in through the interview and hiring process, you have to start talking about these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's open dialogue about
Yeah.
it, right? And let them know what the expectations are, and that's obviously what we all strive for. But I think that leaders and corporations have to be aware that in the current socioeconomic climate and what we're doing here and what's happening, this is going to happen. And look, if they're passing all the reviews and they're doing their job, and obviously they're not lazy.
Right.
I don't know. That's a pretty good DNA for me. I wouldn't mind that at all. I mean, you see, I double, triple clicked on this stuff, and one person said, "Hey, stay loyal to your company, 3% annual raise. Find a new job, 10 to 40% raise, because you'll get more money, right? Find a second job, 90 to 130% raise."
Right. Right.
You know, I struggle with this because I'm with you. I get it, old school,
Hmm.
but what I see out there now with the young kids and the mental health issues and the anxiety, the addiction, suicidal idea. I mean, it's going through the
Yeah.
roof. And I have to bring that into this conversation because
Hmm.
this is not just a business discussion. This is a mental health discussion. And that's what I want to be provocative on this. And I think that we have to be mindful of that and we have to figure out a way to save that. And we have to save this next generation. And if we've got people that are ambitious enough to do this and get and be able to perform, I don't think I'm all for it. I am. And I
Hmm.
never thought I would say that, but I'm like, you know what? Go for it. Now
Yeah.
there's a crap load of jobs that this would never work,
Right.
right? A salesperson, a VP of sales, the jobs that we had, it would never
No.
work, and it just is no way. But if there's a job in a company that it would work, go for it.
Hmm.
Then you can get ahead. You can have some success. You can have some celebrate your success. You can get ahead. Your mental health will go up on the positive side. You're going to be a more productive person in
Right. Right.
society. Yeah, it's all good for me. I love it. I love it. I say go for it. Now 5 may be a bit much,
Yeah.
but I mean, 1 or 2, I say go for it. Why not?
This millennial IT guy in California was on track to earn over 300 last year, so in 2023 across two remote jobs. He said that he'd saved roughly 150K since starting the job juggling in 2021 and that he spent roughly 9,000 on a 3-week honeymoon across Asia last year. He said he did not feel guilty about having multiple jobs because he wasn't violating any labor laws or employment contracts, right? So that comes back to you have to have these conversations with your people that you're interviewing, right? Adding that his company was happy with the work he was doing. Again, something we've talked
Right.
about. He also thinks there's
Right.
a double standard in the corporate world. I found this really interesting. He said it's not uncommon for CEOs like Musk, for instance, to juggle roles with multiple companies, whether as an executive or part of a board. No one ever thinks that's wrong. I'm the same. I'm the CEO of my own labor, and I choose to spend my labor on multiple projects.
Touche.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting because again, he's I couldn't complain about anything he just said at all.
Nope. He's
And
right
it,
on.
but what I will tell you is I occasionally will talk to like somebody will reach out either on their own behalf or, some PR company to be on Authentically Successful. And I'll the first thing, they give you the whole background on people and the first thing I do is go to their LinkedIn before I read all that. And I cannot tell you the numbers of people I've seen that they have like 3 or 4 current jobs, current things going on. And, my usually my comment back to the person who's reached out to me is, "So, we're gonna talk about I mean, maybe you haven't listened to my show or read what it's about. We're talking about building a company, not building 3 or 4 companies at the same time."
Right.
Because here's what concerns me about that from a founder standpoint, right? Or CEO standpoint, is that if you're doing 3 or 4 different things, how effective are you being at any of them?
Look, I've been around enough leadership in the software business, at least in high tech in the
Mhm.
valley and all that. I mean, I can tell you that I haven't, I have never, I don't think I've worked for a leader in the last 20 years that didn't have a board seat or was an
Correct.
advisor getting paid. I mean, they're getting checks in the mailbox that are not
Right.
the company they're working
Yeah.
for. That's all I want to say. Right. So why can't we do it? Right. Why can't other people do it? Now I think there's also I saw a great argument. I want to get your opinion on this. Somebody said, look, if I'm doing 3 jobs and I'm a network engineer, hey, I'm learning 3 times faster how to do the job better
Mm,
because I'm learning from all 3 of those jobs. It's like an ER surgeon, right? He's got different, he or she's
right.
got different problems they're solving and different. So, and they're commingling the best practices they're learning from each job. So it's an advantage for the company.
It is actually a really interesting way of looking at it. And I think that again, it goes back to what are the company's expectations of you and creating a proper expectation for someone. And, if you're in a role where you're doing XYZ and part of that is learning, awesome. And you take another one
Yeah.
and that learning is going to help you be even better in this other job. Again, I got no complaints on that. But it all boils down, Rob, the lowest common denominator here is communication. It always is, right? And that's where I
Always.
say, when you start thinking about what your talent strategy is, you have to think, are we okay with somebody who might be having, one of these sort of back office people who is not in front of clients or prospects
Yeah.
for them to
Yeah.
have another job? Are we okay with that? Companies, I'm here to say, and so are you better start thinking about that.
Oh, yeah. No, you better, and if the company's not gonna communicate those
Then
expectations,
you're
have at
free
it, that's
reign.
my point. In is as long as you're performing and you're doing your job and you're over every time you get a review, it's like 5 stars and you get your
Yeah.
what's the problem? It goes back to what a great way to have your mental health increased on the positive side. You're accomplishing things, you're working hard, providing for your family or whatever yourself, you're putting
Yep,
money
I
away, you're
agree.
investing, you're part of I mean, what's the I don't I there's nothing negative about anything I just said versus, "Hey, I live with my mom. I can't afford food, but I'm loyal to my company for my 3%
Yeah,
annual raise." Screw that.
right. I don't know if did I ever tell you that I had a client years ago, a coaching client, many, many years ago. And he had told me as we were it was either in our probably in our first or second conversation when I was going deep into his background to kind of really I start to look at, what the common denominators I was seeing around his career. Um and a job he had had maybe 2 or 3 times prior to the current one he was in. He had said it was the best job he ever had. And I said, "Well, why did you leave?" He said, "Because I was worried that if I talked to my manager about some of the things I had concerned about, he'd think I was looking for a job and he'd fire me." And I thought, "Wow." Now, there was a lot more to why he was thinking that way because of where his parents came from, and they were under a dictatorship
Yeah.
regime, and before they moved to this country, and that was driving all that, right? But the reality is that whole comment, I think, speaks loud and clear of a lot of what we're talking about, right? It's a lot about the communication. The companies just aren't effectively communicating about many, if not most things. And they're not communicating what they really need or want from their employees and what they expect from their employees,
Yeah.
right? I mean, if you think about expectations, what happens when we have unmet expectations? I mean, put in any negative adjective you can
Mm,
come up with: frustration, anger, disappointment, upset,
that's right.
right?
It's not good.
So I
Yeah, it's not good.
That's right.
No, and that goes back to feedback, right? The
Yeah.
lack of feedback, it's all intertwined, right? And that's I think what we're talking about. And I think, you know, I think looking back, my career, that the CEOs, the executives, they cracked the code on this.
Hmm.
I mean, they're making a lot of money, and they're making a lot of money in many different ways, right? So
I agree.
they don't have the
Yeah.
right to begrudge the employees if they're doing a good job. And again, this goes back, and I'll put a bow around this, but it goes back to there's only a certain amount of jobs this could work. That's the first thing, right? Second thing is
Correct.
you got to be ambitious enough to actually do both of those jobs or three. You can't just not show up, right, and just take the check. That's not ethical. And thirdly, this is a huge hit on a positive influence on your mental health, if that's what you need. um, and just seeing what's going on. And I mean, I'm all for it. If you're ambitious enough, I say go for it. This is not generational, by the way. This could be any age. This is not about, we're not saying, oh, well, Gen Z, go get five. I don't, this is not about a generation. This is about an individual that has, the ambition or the need, or, the financial need. It could be health issues. It could be taking care of your mom or dad. It could be, all kinds of things. And if they find a way to crack that code,
Hmm.
man, I'm shaking their hand. I'm giving them a hug and I'm saying, well
Agreed.
done.
Okay. Well, then,
That's
then,
all I
then
got.
that's all I got. I got nothing left. I'm exhausted talking about this. No, I'm kidding. I don't either, but
I can't wait till the
that'll
next
be
time. I
that'll
don't
be
even know what we're
coming
gonna
up
talk
for
about, but
June. So
yep.
we'll
Yeah, we'll
be
figure it
talking
out.
about that here. Well, you and I will be talking about it here over the next couple of weeks. So, all right.
Well, it was great. It was great
Yeah.
spending time with you again, Carol. I hope that listeners get
Yep.
something out of this. And again, give
Yeah.
us feedback. Go ahead and respond. If we
Yep.
said something that you don't
Yep.
agree with, bring it on. I'm a
Agreed.
lifelong learner,
We
and I
uh
want to
we
hear
are
from
we are
everybody.
not
So
afraid of hard conversations. We're not in the world of we don't agree with you, so
right, right,
screw you. We're
exactly,
not. We don't think that. We welcome all opinions,
yep,
and we want to hear from you,
and
and
not
so on
afraid to
and
be
so forth.
wrong.
All right, Rob. Ciao for now. Thanks for listening to Authentically Successful After Hours. I'm your host, Carol Schultz.
And I'm your co-host, Rob Swymer. Hey, don't forget to click follow to hear more. And please leave us an honest review and rating so we can continue to improve and bring you more great stories.
Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.